I wanted to yap about the feature perfect gaming handheld. Now, you could say that this could come from Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo, but I think the biggest innovations on the gaming handheld front in the past, I don't know, let's even say since the Nintendo Switch came out, even say since 2017, have been on the PC gaming handheld. And let's be real, the Steam Deck. Hey, how you doing, Wonderful Lux? The Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, the Legion Go, all have done really good things for getting more people into PC gaming and consoleizing a lot of adoption rates for the PC gaming handheld market. Hi. Hello. I took a picture of us for my going live on Instagram. This is him. This is Cheeto. He's a little baby, even though he's an old man. So I just wanted to discuss some of the things that I think would make the feature perfect gaming handheld PC. Right? I think competitive-minded players would say the first thing that it needs is a fucking Ethernet port, right? Jokes aside, I think that's a terrible idea. I mean, why are you putting that on a handheld? You're supposed to be carrying around and stuff. So I'm going to say now, I have a gaming handheld PC, and it's not a name brand one. It's an off-brand one. You guys can see that I have them written right there. Those are all the things I'm going to talk about. Anyways, so I have a not name brand one. It's an AYN Loki. I like it. I think ergonomically it's great. But I think ergonomics have already been figured out. Most of them have back buttons. Most of them have ergonomic grips like this and pretty solid triggers and joysticks. Face buttons withstanding. You know, some companies don't do great face buttons, and I think that's just the nature of where they source those parts from. But the software suite is one thing that I think really matters. I like this thing mostly, or not mostly, but a lot of what ergonomics was solved with the Wii Remote, and then everyone forgot about that. Stop that. No, it was solved with the Wii U gamepad, clearly. But Steam Deck looks just like a Wii U gamepad. Conspiracy? I think not. Anyways, the software suite on this, the Loki Command Center, is really good. Right? I look over at some of the contemporaries, like the Armory Crate from ROG, ROG. And theirs is really good. Legion Space was pretty bad for a long time. I'm not sure how good MSI Center M is, but if you think of like all of the back end and front end software, Steam Deck is king. So having a good software suite, I think, means a lot for a lot of these gaming handheld PCs. Is the best controllers can get, motion controls aside. Like, I think some of the buttons are kind of hard to reach. I think that only works if you're only worried about like 4 buttons. If you're doing A, B, and then the 2 triggers and the thumbstick. Like, if that's all you're doing, yeah, unironically, you're kind of right when you think about that. But all of the other buttons that also exist on the controller, like if you need 4 face buttons, yeah. Controllers being separated into 2 different parts. That is so good. Yeah, like the Joy-Cons could have been that. We know someone who plays Super Smash Brothers Ultimate competitively using both Joy-Cons separated. Like that. That's how he plays. So I understand that. Yeah. I think when you think about it, you're almost playing that way when it comes to the gaming handheld PCs because there's a screen in the middle. That's why I made the remark about the Wii U gamepad. I think the Wii U gamepad, for how big and awkward it was, it kind of makes sense. But the next thing, speaking of controls, I think the next thing that all gaming PC handhelds should strive for is all effect sticks and triggers. Right? These devices are extremely expensive. So having buttons that could go out or sticks and triggers that could go out extremely fast in a relative to the price you paid feels pretty bad. It doesn't feel good to pay $800 to pay $650 for a device and potentially have buttons go bad within 3 years. Show of hands. Actually, I only know one person in chat who has a Steam Deck. Are all of your buttons fine on your Steam Deck? Mean Buffalo. Derogatory? What does that mean? Are all of your buttons fine? And sticks and triggers, of course. You probably don't use it as much as some people do. I think my buttons are good. Yeah, when you say I think, that means you probably don't use as much as a lot of other people. But like that bodes well, right? The device has been out 4 years. You were an early adopter, so 2 years? My bad. It has been out 2 years. You're an early adopter, so you probably got it within that first couple months. You got it within the first or second wave. So That's decent enough quality, but we don't want console controller quality, how some modern console controllers don't generally last more than a couple months, more than a year. That's not, I've been using it for like a whole week straight. The buttons are still Gucci. Yeah, don't worry. Mean Buffalo doesn't use his Steam Deck. I do. What up? How you doing, Elliot? Right, so that's something that I think really matters. But the reason why I say for the buttons, it may not matter too much because they have a membrane and you can swap out that membrane, no problem. You know, it's just a board, and iFixit makes kits for that. So replaceable parts for all of the gaming handle PCs manufactured by an outside source like iFixit would be great. But I specifically want to talk about sticks and triggers, because not getting stick drift is great, and not having your triggers jam is even better, right? Especially when you think of the number of games that are going to use these triggers and sticks if you're not playing, you know, smaller, lightweight indie titles that are D-pad focused. For $800, for $650, I think that's pretty important. Valve said that they don't want, they didn't find Hall effect reliable enough to put it into the OLED model, and that scares me. Or a mistake we need to go back. Sticks and triggers are a mistake we need to go back. Okay. All right, leverless player, calm down. All right. I mentioned the Steam Deck OLED for good reason, because I think the next thing on the importance list is the screen. And I think that screen should probably be OLED from now. I think IPS is fine for a lot of these devices that are low quality, right? You look at the Nintendo Switch Lite, it's like $200. Or you look at basic 1080p gaming monitors that are like 120, 144 hertz. Kind of basic. Them being IPS or TN, probably IPS. Oh, I just turned off one of my monitors. Totally makes sense, right? It's not something that really much thought needs to go into if you're thinking of trying to make the most easily mass-produced device. But if you're trying to make a high-quality device and a device that doesn't extract as much battery, you're probably looking at OLED. Hello, racist camera. And the reason why is because when the blacks are... I gotta find a way to say this that doesn't sound racist. When the blacks are black, they don't take as much battery. They don't take any battery because it fully turns off the panel. The pixel is not being lit up by a backlight. There's no backlight bleed to OLED when it comes to the blacks. Only colors show... Like, this all sounds so racially motivated, but it's just color motivated, truly. I think that an OLED screen makes for a significantly more appealing handheld experience. When it comes to the Nintendo Switch OLED, it's a 9-day difference between looking at the OLED and looking at the original LCD panel. And they did it with only $100 difference or a $50 difference. A lot of these gaming handheld PCs have relatively similar size screens. Maybe they don't have the same resolution. They're looking at 1080p instead of looking at 720, which is a mistake, but we'll save that for another day. There are smaller 1080p OLED panels because there are OLED tablets. We know that these exist. So I think that's really important when it comes to the visual quality and presentation of a handheld. Valve, unfortunately, outside of like the smaller competitors and smaller companies like the Aya Neos and the One X's, is the only major manufacturer to adopt the OLED device when it comes to the gaming handheld PCs, and it blows my mind because a giant handheld like the Legion Go not using an OLED screen feels like a crime because that screen is so big and it's 1600p. So if it was OLED and you had to downscale the resolution to something like 1200 or 800p, the colors would still look extremely vibrant, not reminding you that you've downscaled the entire existence of your handheld. Speaking of screens still, variable refresh rate. I think variable refresh rate on a handheld at least, right? Because we can't, the way these processors are currently made and the way that technology is currently going, moreover, the way game optimization and development is going, we can't guarantee stable 60 on PS5. So what the fuck makes you think we can guarantee stable 60 on a gaming handheld PC? variable refresh rate on these smaller screens, I feel like we need it, because without it, a lot of games just don't have that smoothness and immersion, and that immersion becomes quickly broken. I would say anywhere between 90 and 120 hertz is fine. You don't need to go as high as 144, and you probably shouldn't go as low as 60. My handheld actually only has a 60 hertz panel, and I've never really thought about it. It doesn't actually affect me that much, but when it comes to having more things to divide by, for a V-Sync experience, 120 or 90 make more sense. Because 90, you can go 60, 30, 45, or 90, right? 60, you can only go 60, 30. I don't think you can do 40 because of with a 60 hertz refresh rate. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. I could be off my fucking rocker. And the same thing with something like 120. You'd be able to divide that by multiple different things, including 90, including 40, 60, and 30, which is really nice, along with the full 120. So variable refresh rate, pretty important. I think that's it for like the screen, but that's not it for the controls. Why is it that only 2 major gaming handheld PCs have a fucking trackpad? They are still PCs, and they don't always have the best user experience to make that PC not feel like a PC. The Legion Go and the Steam Deck are the only 2 that have trackpads. Trackpads for navigating Windows or navigating SteamOS, probably mostly just Windows. Let's fucking be honest. Mostly just for navigating Windows. Kind of a war crime that we don't see it on more devices, right? We see it on the Aya Neo Kun. The Aya Neo Kun, not COON. The Aya Neo device. And we see it on the GDP Win 4, right? And I believe even the Zotac Zone is going to have trackpads, which is something I'll show you guys in a second and talk about, because I think it's the closest to feature complete. Or feature perfect. Windows is not an amazing experience for gaming handhelds. They haven't really had a good tablet version in a long time. We're off Windows 10. Windows 8 existed, and they definitely fully removed all of the backbone that would have made for a good Windows touchscreen experience from something like Windows 8. We no longer have any of those features. It's been over 10 years since then. Not something that is clearly on Microsoft's mind, but all of these gaming handheld PCs are pushing potentially more people into the Windows ecosystem, but not making it easy. And it may also just push people away from the ecosystem. So creating devices or an operating system that make navigating it easier through trackpads or touchscreen would be pretty nice. I don't think 2 are necessary. I don't think you need 2. I think the Legion Go did fine by having 1 trackpad. Probably all you need. But 2 is really nice, especially if they have haptic, if they have a button, so that you can actually use one as left click and one as right click for your mouse. Or you could just put one and make it separate, where it still travels across, but if you press one side, it's left click. If you press one side, it's right click. I think that should be on like every handheld. I'm really sad that something as cool as the ROG Ally X didn't add that. They just like changed the body and added and made it black and added some RAM and a big battery, but didn't add a trackpad, which I think is a huge fumble, because the trackpad feels pretty necessary if you're doing anything on the back end, as your device is still Windows and sometimes may give you problems. Only really one thing left, and it's like probably the least important for a single experience, for a solo experience, for a lonely gamer. If you have friends or you have multiplayer games, especially local multiplayer games that exist on your Steam library, on your Epic Games library, GOG, whatever you may be using, that multiple controllers are allowed to be used on a single device, like a Nintendo Switch, I think you guys can understand what I'm getting at. It's kind of hard to prop your device up with a lot of these. Most of these, I just punch the shit out of my microphone. Most of these don't have a kickstand. Once again, another thing I think that the Legion Go did great. It's a big, heavy device. It's basically a fucking gaming tablet with 2 controllers like slapped on the fucking side of it. It has a kickstand. The Nintendo Switch, the original, even though the kickstand on that was really bad, and the OLED, they have a kickstand. Steam Deck has more than enough space on the back to accommodate for little kickstands or 2 little kickstands, with the cooling probably not being very much affected, especially with how low APU wattage that is, 15 watts. Something like the Steam Deck, especially with its pretty big size would have been really nice to have as a proppable device outside of a dock. Same thing with the ROG Ally, which is a little smaller, but doesn't have that kickstand. MSI Claw, no kickstand. There is very little devices. There's 0 devices that have everything I mentioned. Right? I mentioned an OLED screen with variable 90 to 120 hertz refresh rate, trackpads, Hall effect sticks and triggers, good software, and a kickstand. There's only one handheld that comes extremely close to feature complete. And it's very unfortunate, because when I think about it, it's probably one that people don't even know exists or is going to exist. Boom! It's this one, the Zotac Zone. If there was another handheld PC I was going to pick up, because I was lucky enough to find this one on a good deal. Okay, it runs like everything I need to play, everything I want to play, runs on it fine enough. Okay, with decent looking quality settings, I can get over it. I don't really need any of the fancy amenities. But if I had the extra money to spend, I'd probably go for something like this. The only thing this doesn't have that something like the ROG Ally X has is a bigger battery and 24 gigs of RAM, which unfortunately, not software-wise, but power-wise and hardware-wise, I think is kind of important, because games are getting so big and unoptimized that you need more VRAM, and using 16 gigs all for system, sometimes you don't have enough for VRAM, so you're stuck doing 2 and 14, or 3 and 13, or 4 and 12, and your games run like ass because of it, and for no other reason, truly. And that really sucks. And the Zotac Zone is a 16 gigabyte model, unfortunately, so that's one of the things, that's one of the trade-offs. But it has Hall effect sticks and triggers, clicky D-pad. I don't know if it has clicky buttons, though. A whole host of face buttons for all of the amenities and things you need, including probably their Zotac software front end. Who knows if it's good or not, or their Zone front end. Get in the zone. Zotac Zone. Game in the zone. That's pretty good. It has a kickstand on the back, as you see here. It also has 2 USB-C 4 ports, one on the top, one on the bottom. Not that important, really. But it does have a 120 hertz OLED. I think it's actually an AMOLED display. Yeah, a 120 hertz AMOLED display with 800 nits of brightness. So not full HDR, unfortunately. But okay, it says HDR already, but it's not full HDR. It doesn't go up to 1,000 nits. It goes up to 800, which is still pretty good, and it has extremely wide color gamut, 7 inches in full HD 1080p resolution. What makes me sad about this is it's missing one thing. This is like, other than a software front end, because I don't know how the Zotac Zone software front end is, and I'm a super small Twitch streamer / YouTuber who doesn't really post enough. Zotac's not going to send me this shit, so I'll have no idea. But their software suite is a mystery. Currently, I don't know. It could be terrible. It could be as bad as Legion Space when the Legion Go first launched. It could be as bad as MSI Center M when the MSI Claw first launched. We have no idea. Personally, I don't know why more of these people don't just steal the idea from Valve and like have like a big picture mode looking front end, but that's not big picture mode, so Big Daddy Valve can't sue you. Anyways, this thing is the closest to feature complete. It just doesn't have variable refresh rate. As far as I know, it says here 120 hertz, but it doesn't say variable refresh rate. So I'm going to assume it's missing that. And that's really all it's missing. The only other thing I could think that it would need, but not really a necessity, because some people don't play big games on their handhelds, they really use it for more indie things, is what the ROG Ally X has, which is 24 gigs of RAM. For the extra amount of compatibility with high performance necessary games, so with games that require a lot of VRAM. That's the real only problem, because this uses a similar chip. I think it uses the 8840U, so very similar to the D1 Extreme or the 7840U. Basically, it just has 24 gigs of RAM, and it has a 80 watt hour battery. So these two need to have a baby. They need to fuck. They need to have a nasty technological love child, and I'll buy that. That would be the best gaming handheld PC. That would be a feature complete, a feature perfect gaming handheld PC. I yap a lot, and I yapped for a long time there. I'm gonna hope to get this up by the end of the week. If you're watching, tell me all the features you think that a gaming handheld PC or a gaming handheld device from something like Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft would need to be considered feature complete, feature perfect to you. I didn't even mention a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack because they all have it. If this is extremely important to you, mention it down below. Multiple USB-C ports, one on the top, one on the bottom. Is it necessary? Leave it in the comment section down below. I like where this technology is going, I think. I'm cautiously optimistic. Anyways, this has been Beanie Thuggish, yapping about features I'd like to see on future gaming handhelds, signing out and saying